Yes.
7 o'clock, Iredell County Commissioners meeting will now come to order. I'll call on Mr. Johnson for the invocation.
Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, we again thank you for this time that we can come to you and petition you for our needs. And we thank you for the way you've blessed us. And Father, during these difficult times, we worry about the future and we worry about how we're going to do certain things, and we forget to offer thanks to you for how well you've blessed us. And Lord, we just pray for wisdom as we go through this budget this year. We pray for wisdom for our staff and our board. We offer thanks to you for the continued improvement of our chairman. He's going to try to be back with us in a couple of weeks, and we just pray that you'll continue to minister to him and to heal him, and that he'll be back with us, and again we'll enjoy his wisdom and his fellowship. Be with us through these proceedings tonight. Give us wisdom and give us grace. We pray your blessing upon each one here, and we thank you for their concern for their community. And we pray that we'll leave here, Father, with a better understanding of one another and the predicament we face, and we'll join hands and work together. And we ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll call on Mr. Mashman for adjustments to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I have no adjustments to the agenda this evening.
Okay. If not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Could I add something?
Sure.
I have an item under new business, if I could. Consideration of an ordinance relating to unmowed lawns. I'd like to first discuss that if we could, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay. Are there any more additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to accept the agenda as
Motion to
presented?
accept the agenda as presented and amended, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We do not have any special recognition awards tonight or any appointments before the board. We do have a public hearing, of course, and I'm going to call on Mr. Matson to first start that.
Mr. Chairman, for just a couple of moments, we're going to kind of review and highlight the proposed budget for FY09-10. The proposed general fund budget is $153,448,600, which is almost a 10% reduction over the current FY. It only has 3 new positions, and those are in DSS, and those are paid in large part by non-county dollars. There are 5 positions which have been eliminated, and during the year we anticipate identifying 20 more positions to be eliminated. No salary increases for county employees, either across the board or merit. There's only $690,985 in the budget for capital purchases in the general fund. That's about 29% less than, but that's about 29% of what last year's expenditures were. There are no vehicles. Most of the capital items are technical upgrades for computer programs, software and hardware. The education expenditures as a percentage of the budget has increased from 43.93% to 44.181%, but because of a decrease in the number of students and also the loss of revenue, expenditures for education is down. The ADM appropriation is down from $1,466 per pupil to $1,375 per pupil. At this time, I'm going to call on Ms. Blumenstein, our Director of Finance, to go over an overview of the revenue projections.
Thank you. We've talked a little bit about revenues in our first budget meeting, but I wanted to highlight just the major revenue sources. Our ad valorem taxes provide 60% of the general fund operating budget. That's about $88 million estimated for next fiscal year. That's based on a $20.4 billion valuation. It's only a 3.22% increase over fiscal year 09. Total ad valorem taxes, including those that are delinquent from prior years, collections, we estimate will collect about $2.4 million over fiscal year 09. Another big item for revenues is sales taxes. They're going to provide about 17% of next year's budget, with estimated collections at $26.4 million. That's almost $7.7 million less than what was available to budget for fiscal year 09. With a 12.6% unemployment rate, retail sales are drastically down. Grants and other restricted revenues are about 12% of total revenues, or $18.4 million. This is $1 million less than was budgeted for fiscal year 09. That accounts for a lot of the revenues in Department of Social Services, about 50% of their budget, revenues in the Health Department, and some other categorical grants. Other taxes and licenses, it's not a big piece, but a small piece, about 1% of the budget, or about $1.5 million. Some examples of those revenues are Register of Deeds revenue stamps, cable TV tax, and Schedule B licenses. That's about $735,000 less available for fiscal year 2010 than fiscal year 2009. Permits and fees, that's about 2% of our total revenue stream, or $3.7 million. Some examples there are building permits and inspections fees, planning department fees, register of deeds recording fees, environmental health fees. They're about $2.1 million less than what was budgeted in fiscal year 09. Sales and service, that provides about 6% of the total general fund revenues. We're estimating those for next year at $9.2 million. And some examples are Health Department patient fees, recreation fees, Sheriff's Department and jail fees, rents, animal control fees. They're about $580,000 more than the prior fiscal year. And last but not least is fund balance, which is about 1% of what we're budgeting. I won't call it a revenue. We're budgeting $2 million for fiscal year 10, which is $2.6 million less than what we budgeted in fiscal year 09. And after the end of this fiscal year, if we use the entire $2 million, we'll have a 12.71% fund balance as compared to the total budget for next year.
And in conclusion, I would just like to say that if approved as presented, the tax rate will remain at 44.5 cents based on a $100 valuation, and a total valuation of $20,287,000,000. And that is the recommended budget, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Matchman. We are now going to the public hearing section. Do we have anyone here wishing to speak? If you are wishing to speak on behalf of the budget, for or against the budget, you have an opportunity at this time. You have 5 minutes to speak. So at this time, if you're looking forward to speaking, you can walk forward to the mic.
Mr. Chairman, we did have a log that people signed up on, but it didn't seem to make its way up here. So, Chris, would you see if it's back there? If you don't mind, we'll take it in order that people signed up first, and then if there are others, we will do that. I apologize for that. Normally it's up here, but it didn't make its way this time. Does anybody remember who was first on the list? Yeah, here it comes.
Somebody say who's on first, please.
The first person on the list is Beth Hill. Representing the Friends of Fort Dobbs.
Well, obviously, I'm not Beth Hill.
Hey, Dr. Minter.
I wish I were as good looking and as smart, and I'd be happy. I am representing Friends of Fort Dobbs. I'm chairman of that organization at this point in time, and I come tonight to just thank the commissioners for what they've done for us in the past. We are really appreciative of your inclusion of us in your previous budgets, and we have certainly tried to use every penny wisely. And Beth Hill, who is the director of the site, is here just to give a brief overview of how we utilize the money that's been provided by the commissioners to the Friends of Fort Dobbs. Beth?
Thank you, Dr. Bentley, and thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to speak for a minute tonight. For those who don't know me, my name is Beth Hill, and I'm the director of Fort Dobbs State Historic Site. And we're here tonight to say thank you for your past support over the past few years. I presented some of the material to you that covers some of the statistics from 2008-2009 budget year. And certainly the support from the county, either directly or indirectly, enabled the programs to be successful and the site to grow and the state support to grow, and really quite a wonderful site and program that we offer for our community and far beyond with our visitation. So first and foremost, thank you to all of you for your support. It's been quite a journey for the past 5 years, and we look forward to a site that will continue to thrive even amongst challenges as we have with this budget year, and we look forward to your future support. Just to briefly go over some of the statistics, last year Fort Dobbs served approximately 20,000 visitors to the site. That was about 9,000 school children in that number, and this year we're at 10.7% increase for visitation. A lot of that has to do with the directional signs that are located on the interstate. A lot of our visitors get off the interstate traveling, particularly I-77, but also across the state to visit the site. We offered 175 educational programs in 2008. And this year, we've already reached more than 400 educational programs through May of 2009. We offered 7 living history weekends and 2 highly acclaimed special events, and I know several of you have been able to attend those and have enjoyed those. We also were able to reach 31,987 children and adults in our outreach program across the state and even far beyond, representing this community. Last year, our volunteers that represent the soldiers participated in an event at Fort Ligonier in Pennsylvania for their 250th anniversary, and so that was a great honor and good representation for our community. And we've been able to continue to develop programs, being good stewards of our expenses and very practical with the challenges in front of us. And this year we're initiating 2 new programs beginning in June, one called Hands-On History, which will be offered on Saturdays, and another one called Digging History that will be initiated at the Cub Scout Day Camp. And that's something that all of you know has been going on for many, many years at Fort Dobbs, approximately 20 years every summer. And that program has grown to be the largest Cub Scout Day Camp in North Carolina. So that's really exciting and a great opportunity for the boys to enjoy the site recreationally, as well as learn about the history and give them a sense of place of who we are and how we became the community, and also certainly learn the lessons from those who struggled in the past. As a little side note, facing all these challenges, really one has to take pause and think about those who served Fort Dobbs 250 years ago and the settlers that were here and the challenges they faced in establishing a life here and hope for the future. And certainly, I know at Fort Dobbs we think about that often, and that, I guess, perhaps gives us a little inspiration on how we'll move forward in these challenging times. If moving down to operations and planning, we thanks to the support of the Friends of Fort Dobbs and a community-wide strategic planning committee, completed our strategic plan, and it was approved by the Division of State Historic Sites in July of 2008, and now we've begun implementing that. And we're about a quarter through the implementation. Of course, it's a 10-year plan, but there were several items that we were able to initiate immediately. And part of that implementation is also the result of a very prestigious grant that we got from the Institute of Museum and Library Services called Museums for America grant, which provided planning funding for us to do the conceptual design work for the fort, as well as develop the long-range interpretive plan, which we're about to begin this coming month with a firm from the UK. Our staff is now 3 staff members and 2 part-time, and that's a reflection of the division's increased support for the site, thanks to the community-wide support, and that has been a wonderful opportunity to see that grow to meet the demands of our visitation. And you can look at some of these other figures.
If you would like to wrap up, we've already
Sure.
run out of
Okay,
time.
I noticed the red light. So just to conclude, and certainly if you have any questions, I just want to thank you so much for your support and let you know that you know, your funding has been used wisely, and we certainly have done our utmost to be good stewards of the local funding as well as the statewide funding and private and corporate funding. And we look forward to your future support when the economy improves a little bit. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Julia Wilson, Iredell Museums.
Hi, my name is Julia Wilson. I am president of the board of Iredell Museums. We have several board members here. If you guys could wave or stand up. Thank you so much for coming. Iredell Museums appreciates your support. We're very proud to be able to say that we have supported the county. That's a big deal to us. Not getting your support in 2009, 2010 is also a big deal to us. It's painful. We're very good at stretching our dollar, and not having this money come in will mean something has to be deleted or changed. So we run a very efficient organization, and we're here tonight to just show you that we care, that this has not gone unnoticed, and that we will have to change the way we operate because we aren't getting this money. Iredell Museums operates in 3 locations. We have a children's museum at the mall, we have the gallery on Court Street, and we have the cabins on Museum Road. Those 3 locations bring in 20,000 people every year. And when those people are here, they stop for gas, they stop for a Coke, they stop for dinner in downtown Statesville. They spend money while they're here. We draw people not only from Iredell County, but also 26 counties in the state of North Carolina. We draw people from 16 states in this country. We have exciting events, and that's the reason we're drawing these people in. If you haven't experienced Iredell Museum on the opening of Art Crawl, which happens twice a year in March and September, and you see hundreds of people literally come through Iredell Museum's gallery on Court Street, you've missed it. It's something to see. We run out of food, we run out of drink, but they still come. So Iredell Museums has been very much a proponent of the Art Crawl. We're the first stop. It's a very exciting place to be on Art Crawl nights. We had a phenomenal exhibit this past year in the Max Tharp exhibit. And if you were not one of the 2,000 people that came through the museum to see the Max Tharp photographs, you're in the minority. We drew people from all over the country. They came in and they laughed and they cried, and they were just so impressed that this little museum in Statesville could pull off something this big. And we did. We pulled it off, and it was a phenomenal thing to pull off. So we've raised the bar, and there is a very high expectation now of the people in Iredell County for what they can get from Iredell Museums. We're introducing museums to people that have never been in a museum before. Literally, we had people in the Max Tharp exhibit that didn't know what a museum was. And if that doesn't make a difference in Iredell County, I'm not really sure what does. So I'm here to appeal to you that if there is any kind of flexibility, that some money is better than no money, and that with our 2 full-time employees and our 2 part-time employees, and with our director's stretch of every dollar she gets, we will make that money work for the county, and we'll make you proud, and we'll continue to make Iredell Museums proud. So I appreciate your support in the past. We're going to miss it in 2010. If there's any flexibility, we'd like to ask for that. And I'm very thankful for having this few minutes to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is King Carty.
Hello, I'm King Carty, and I'm here as a private citizen, very casually, as you can see. And I have a message which is really one of support for the commissioners. I'm a real estate agent, and as we all know, real estate is in the tank right now. I'm not exactly living the dream, you know. We're not making much money this year. But we'll see what happens. It could go great. And I just say that because I know that there are many businesses like mine that are on the rocks. Things are not doing well. Times are not great. And you guys have to sit here and decide what to do about that in the county. And I know it's not an easy thing to do. You have many, many needs, a lot of things to prioritize. And I just want to give you a vote of confidence. The commissioners that I know of, I see that they are people I think of are high moral character, high intelligence, and I think they also happen to be people that know how to balance a checkbook, which is very important, because when all these revenues dry up, there's no money around, someone has to make hard choices. It's not easy. There's so many needs, there's so many voices that are asking for money, and it's, like I said, the needs are usually very legitimate. So I know it's not easy for you guys to make these tough decisions, but I just wanted to give you my support, let you know that there are people out there that think well of you and appreciate what you have to do. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Joyce O'Neill, Arts Council. Joyce O'Neill, Arts Council. Okay. Brenda Spieth, Children's Homes of Iredell County.
I appreciate the opportunity to come tonight and say thank you for 35 years of support for the children of Iredell County. This year we were not really expecting to get consideration because of the needs that are going on in our community and all over the country. We are preparing to try to open up 6 more spaces for children that are in crisis in DSS care. So this money is very important in our efforts to provide safety and care for the children. I, too, like everyone else, appreciate the job that you have to do in looking at who you can fund and who you can't. But the children that we care for today will one day either be sitting here or sitting in jail. So I appreciate everything, every consideration that has been made for our kids. They are our future. That's not just a euphemism. You know, we either take care of them so they can take care of us. But I appreciate the fact that every consideration is made, every hard cut that you have to make. But I'm very thankful that I can stand here and say thank you for the children that we're caring for now and for the 6 more that we will be providing care for, a total of 25, when we locate a residence and meet all the criteria that has to be met to provide safety. And providing for to educate them on our history, Fort Dobbs, Arts Council, all these things are necessary to make a well-rounded citizen. It's not just the basic needs. They need more if they're going to be people like we have sitting before us. So for my 18 years as director of the Children's Homes of Iredell County, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Neill, who was on the list, was unable to stay, but we do have a statement from her. It says, thanks to county commissioners for all of their support in the past for the Iredell County Arts Council, and like everyone else, the council hopes the economy improves with the future. That is the statement that was submitted by Joyce O'Neill with the Iredell Arts Council. Mr. Chairman, those are the names on the list of people that have signed up.
Okay. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak regarding the budget tonight? This is your time. If not, I appreciate you coming. And I will close the public hearing on that last note from Mrs. Speaks. Have a motion? Move on.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Move properly. Move that we close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Next on the agenda, Mr. Mashman, we're going to administrative matters.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the first item under administrative matters is a request to approve a project ordinance for the animal shelter facility. Ms. Blumenstein, Director of Finance, will present that request.
I've prepared and presented for your review and consideration a project ordinance for the Animal Services Administrative and Shelter Facility. At this point, I've only recognized $249,000 as a transfer from the general fund. It's currently in the Animal Services budget. We would like to transfer that money to this separate capital project fund. The funds will be used for the design of the facility. A contract has already been awarded for $200,000 to the architectural firm. I've also broken out $49,000 for other services that may be required at that site. The funds have already been provided. This would adopt the ordinance so we can get moving with that contract, and it would approve Budget Amendment number 55 to transfer the funds from the general fund to the capital project fund.
Okay. You too, Mr. Smith?
Are there any questions?
Is that all? Any questions? Not. Need a motion to approve that, don't we?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve budget amendment number 55.
Okay. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
We have a request from the Health Department. Donna Campbell, Health Director, is here to make that presentation.
Good evening. Earlier in February, we had over $700,000 cut from our Human Services building budget, and we've been in the midst of several smaller renovation projects there, and we are asking for a budget amendment to use Medicaid max dollars, not county funds, but strictly 100% Medicaid max dollars, to have an electronic access control system installed. And this was part of some of our original planning that got stopped when we had the budget cut. So we're requesting a budget amendment for $23,265 in Medicaid max dollars to fund this electronic access control system.
Ms. Campbell, will you take just a brief moment and explain what that Medicaid Max Fund is?
That is money that we earn through our Medicaid program, where the county, where the state comes in and assesses the actual costs of for us to provide the service, and then they provide us with funding to cover the gap. It costs more than what we receive from Medicaid to provide the services, so this is a way that they reimburse the county for those funds or for those services.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All in favor
Aye.
of the motion?
So moved.
Mr. Kidd. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 Those opposed?
Thank you.
The next item is a request to approve the 09-10 Juvenile Crime Prevention Council budget. CJPC funds or JCPC funds are funds that are passed through to the county from the state. We have Vicki Dame, who is the JCPC chairperson, to make that presentation.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here just to ask you, as he just said, to please approve the budget for the Juvenile Crime Commission for Iredell County for the fiscal year 2009-2010.
There's quite a bit of information in your package about that. This is a program that has been funded as long as I've been here, and we do have a JCPC council. Some of the commissioners serve on that council. Staff members serve on that. But the funds come from a state allocation and is basically passed through with oversight at the county level.
Do we have a hard number on this from the state? I know these numbers a lot of times are in flux up to the time that they approve the budget. So I assume whatever the number we get from the state, that's what we're going to spend. But do we know what that number is yet? Or?
It's approximately $270,000. That's what we will include in the budget ordinance. And then if the state approves something less than that, which I anticipate there will be a decrease, then the program agreements will be amended and we won't spend any more than we get.
Okay. Any additional questions? Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed?
Thank you.
Next item is the request to approve a grant application for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant that is funded by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Iredell County has been notified that it is a recipient of $645,100. Those are funds that we do not have to compete for, but we do have to submit an application for them. And we now have a presentation of what the county plans to do with those funds by Steve Warren and Lynn Niblock.
Thank you, Mr. Mashburn. In accordance with the county grant policy, we're here tonight to ask permission to move forward with submittal of a grant. This is through the American Recovery Act, sponsored by the Department of Energy. It's a formula grant. There's an allocated amount for Iredell County in the amount of $645,100. And there's a formula that this was based on, and they were doing this based on the population of the top 10 most populated counties in the state once you subtract out the entitlement cities and towns based on their population. So that's how that rough amount got formulated. This grant comes with no strings attached. There is no match required of this grant. We do have to go through the grant application process through a website entitled FedConnect. The staff has done a lot of research looking into different activities. The activities have to promote energy efficiency and conservation. And there's a wide range of programs and activities that this grant entails. There's also some elements, or what they call metrics, that the activities have to be measured against. I've given you a very brief outline in the grant memo and the action request memo, but basically what the staff has put together is a request to use this allocated money, and the deadline for application is coming up. It's June 25th for a geothermal heating and air system for the new county animal shelter, for energy efficient lighting upgrades in some county buildings, for some replacement of some aging utility systems with solar water heaters in some county buildings, and the rest could be used for technical cost. There's also the opportunity because they really want to get this money out to cities, counties, and towns for some shifting of the fund amounts in case a project didn't cost quite as much as was first thought. The turnaround time on the announcement of the award is 60 days from the point of application. I've been told from several sources that if we do somehow have a snafu in the application itself, there's actually an official from DOE that will contact the local staff to point out the error and get us back on the path as far as proper application. Hopefully there will be other federal grants like this. This is the first one that I've been involved with, quite frankly, through this Stimulus Act, and I'm hopeful that this will be a very great benefit to Iredell County. I'll be glad to answer any questions. And Lynn has been a great resource in helping out identifying relevant programs that we could use this money for. Of course, the idea is over the performance period of 3 years to show a vast improvement over our utility bills, our energy savings, and our county facilities. And the hope of DOE in this program in the first place is to show long-term conservation benefits and cost savings with utilization of new energy technology. That's really about it.
I've got some questions. And these probably go to Mr. Newblock, but how did you decide which projects you were going to do? Because I know it's like, oh, okay, we have all this money, we can spend it, but if doing solar lighting costs $100,000, but it saves us $2,000 a year, and doing the geothermal HVAC, I know is usually pretty good bang for the buck. If we could spend $100,000 there and save ourselves $20,000 a year, then even though right now kind of the trendy thing to do is to go solar and all that kind of stuff. I mean, were the decisions made based on where we're going to get our biggest payback in energy dollar savings, or were we attempting to kind of spread the wealth and try different technologies?
Well, certainly
utilize different technologies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, certainly we tried to look at the best return on the investment, but part of the criteria for the stimulus grants are renewable energy sources, reducing our carbon footprint, which is the trendy term these days, alternate energy, and so forth and so on. We also solicited ideas from other departments within the county for potential projects, excuse me, that they thought might be appropriate. And Steve and myself have done a considerable amount of research. We've done a lot of webinars and so forth and so on the various information. So we used both of the several criteria, one being getting the most bang for our buck, but also we wanted to try to also identify areas that fit the criteria of the grant and will give us long-term savings once the money's spent and the projects are over, that we would have recurring energy savings through increased efficiency on the county buildings, whether it be lighting, water heating, geothermal.
Were you required to spend a certain percentage of this grant on lighting initiatives, or?
No, we were not there. And there, as Steve said, I believe earlier, there is some flexibility in shuffling some of those funds between one project and another, as long as the projects are acceptable for the grant criteria. So one of the ideas in putting the information together, should the board approve us going ahead with this grant process, will be to try not to nail ourselves down too tightly to where we don't have the latitude to make some changes in direction once we get into doing additional research and cost analysis beyond what we've done up to this point.
If I just I encourage, and I'd really like to see what, for some of these different technologies, and I understand you don't have finalized plans, okay? I'll just say that right up front. But as we go forward to spend the money, I really would like to know that we're not putting in a solar light or a solar cell to provide lighting that's got a 50-year payback, even though we don't have to pay it back. If there's another energy-saving technology that has a 4-year payback, okay? Because this is an opportunity, basically, for us to get some recurring savings, and we should maximize that, even if we don't, even if we don't save the $640,000 that they gave us, and other people can argue whether that was smart or not smart. But the fact is we have it. I want to make sure that we get the most annualized savings on month 37 as we can. And I'm less interested in, putting up a windmill if it's not going to help us. It may look pretty and get everybody excited. I'm interested in doing stuff so that you can say that for the $645,000, the way that we spent it gave us the largest dollar savings in energy cost reductions for the county. I think that should be the driving factor above all else, especially as y'all have said, there's no additional strings attached, that we put up 2 windmills and 4 solar panels and a partridge in a pear tree. Okay.
Certainly, and we certainly will take that in consideration, and I feel the same way. We need to look at what's going to work and what's going to have the payback over a number of years and continue to pay the county back and save us money long term. And that's one reason for instance, we're saying increase energy efficient lighting instead of just saying we're going to put up solar street lights. And we're trying to leave ourselves enough flexibility that when we get involved more into doing more research, if the board chooses for us to go forward with this project, where we'll have that flexibility.
Outstanding.
Mr. Niblock, I understand that there is no matching. This is strictly a grant, but no matching money from the county.
That's correct.
Okay.
One of the things, too, that I failed to mention is that we're going to have to base our decisions on a county energy strategy. And that's going to maybe take care of some of the concerns, Mr. Robertson, that you expressed, that we have very good goals and objectives as part of this, and we can certainly share that with you as we develop that.
And I might add as well that the June 25th, is that correct, deadline is to get our application in. We do not necessarily have to have all of the projects completely defined at that point in time. So we do have a fairly short window on moving forward with the application, but we have some additional time to do the additional research and to meet the criteria that you set out for us.
Mr. Keaton?
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 questions. I wondered, is there any chance of this going over budget? And second of all, are we using proven technologies?
Well, geothermal, for instance, has been around for a number of years. It has been there for a long time. It is a more expensive system to put in up front, but generally on average, and of course that depends on the size of the building and a lot of criteria, but on average it operates somewhere 40 to 50% more efficient than a heat pump or a conventional gas and air conditioning system. And that technology's been around for a number of years. Solar has been around for a good while. It has improved over the years and continues to improve. And you mentioned windmills. We've actually done some research on windmills, but didn't feel that this was the best area. If you look at wind power versus solar power, in our area of the country, solar comes out on top. Now, there are, of course, other areas of the country where the opposite may be true, but that's something that we would certainly get more into as we research this, and ultimately, whatever projects we come up with, we would be nailing down a price. So as far as not going over budget, we should be able to control that. because before we move forward, we'll be nailing down a price. And for instance, if we were to go forward with the geothermal heat pump system at the animal shelter, that's something that would come back to the board as part of the construction documents and bids that would have to be approved by the board as well. So I see no reason why we should run over budget, and in a lot of cases it will be figures that it will need to come back to the board for approval before we move forward with awarding any contracts for any of that anyway.
And I guess when I said over budget, I meant over the amount that's been allocated by the federal government.
No, I understood your question, okay. and that was, maybe I didn't answer it like you were.
We won't be spending county money on this, is the?
There is no intent on spending county money to implement or put in any of this, whatever we end up doing with this grant funds.
That's all.
Okay. Any more questions, Mr.
Niblock? Mr. Warren, I'm just listening to the discussion here. I guess this is a fair statement based upon what I've heard, that you have parameters of this grant application, and you probably share the board's concern that some of these technologies aren't proven to be the big money savers that some pretend that they are. But in order to fit the parameter of the grant, you got to give a little bit here and there to stay in their good graces.
I think that's a fair summary, yes, sir.
I just encourage you, like Mr. Robertson was talking about, lean the other way as hard as you can. Cause
yes, sir.
I don't know if you've ever been online and taken one of these carbon footprint tests. I started and got halfway through with it and was using too much bad language and quit. I arrived at the conclusion that if you work for a living, you're an ecological wrecking crew by yourself, and if you're sat at home in a housing project eating Cheetos and watching ESPN, you're probably a pretty noble person. So I got mad and quit taking the test. But you know where I'm headed with this. Just push it that far, bang for the buck as you can, and it'll be appreciated.
Well, we will certainly do that, and that's one reason in looking at the solar, the research I've done up to now is that the solar water heating is a more developed and more reliable and more efficient technology than some of the solar generating panels to generate electricity, although they've made great strides over the years as well.
Any more questions? Mr. Niblock? Thank you, Mr. Niblock.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. You're welcome. At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions?
Grant application.
Okay. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed?
Item E is a request to approve a contract for uniforms. Dean Lale Purchasing will make that presentation.
Good evening. The Iredell County Sheriff's Office and Iredell County Solid Waste both rent uniforms to prevent the necessity of buying, repairing, and replacing those uniforms whenever they're torn during their service. Sheriff's Office request is actually for the jail, and they do have a little bit more call for changes because of the nature of the duties they do. And of course, there is some hazardous waste that they have to deal with, and once that happens, that uniform becomes hazardous waste. Renting those uniforms alleviates the need to have to replace those. It also alleviates the need to have every uniform re-embroidered and redelivered to the agent, or to the officer. So the request for both agencies is to approve a 3-year contract with a company called Centos, which represents for both of them a substantial savings over what they're spending now on the rental of uniforms. The contract is a 3-year contract, does require board approval and signature, and that's our request this evening.
Anyone have any questions?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, the next item has to do with an item that came out of the winter planning conference. And since I asked Tracy, who was the one that worked this thing, us to sit up in the control booth tonight, I'll go ahead and make that presentation. Again, the history on this item is that at your winter planning session, Commissioner Johnson made a motion to establish a planning committee to review fire department operations, locations, insurance ratings, and funding issues, and 2, for the fire chiefs to compile a list of nominees to serve, and 3, for 2 members of the Board of County Commissioners to serve on the committee. And that did pass 5-0. What you have is it's taken into consideration information that we receive from the fire chiefs through our fire marshal, and basically the organization would be include 2 commissioners, 2 fire chiefs that would be selected by the Fire Chiefs Association, a water company representative, a fire tax board member, a volunteer fire department board member, and 2 taxpayers that are non-fire service with non-fire service connection. And then non-voting members of the committee would be the Director of Planning and Development and the Fire Marshal. And then, of course, other staff such as mapping, finance, IT, and so forth would be available when called on to provide information and input. The purpose is to review fire insurance ratings countywide, determine where potential shortcomings exist, assess available revenues, determine the needs and develop priorities for improving the ratings. Departments with low ratings and low funding should get top priority. The committee should develop a 5-year plan for improving ratings. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Johnson, since you were the one that made the motion to create this committee, we also asked you to review the information that was submitted, and you may have some comments that you want to make on that as well.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jackson called me and asked, I want to make sure that he understood properly what the purpose of the mission was, and Mr. Mashburn, he's accurately written down what I said. But upon further reflection, I would like to offer an amendment to what I previously said. Where you read a minute ago, departments with low ratings and low funding should get top priority, I would like to amend that, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, to delete that sentence and rather say departments with the potential to improve insurance ratings at a lower cost should get top priority.
Yes.
Can I read that?
Yeah, read it again.
Departments with the potential to improve insurance ratings at a lower cost should get top priority.
Is the way the purpose written, I mean, we're somewhat anticipating possibly another fire department leaving the service, and then what will the counties, the rest of the county going to look like after that happens? That is under this umbrella because we've said develop a 5-year plan.
Yeah, in discussion with Mr. Ramsey, because of annexation and because some of those fire departments are almost surrounded by city boundaries now, it may be at some point we would have to consider the merger of 2 departments into one. Or we may have to consider making their substation their primary station as compared to the one that is their primary station now. So there's several factors we may have to consider.
But the structure is within the realm of this.
Right.
Correct. That's as I understood it as well.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, please, the board, I would like to ask Mr. Johnson if you'd consider just striking that sentence entirely and leaving it and not codifying that particular purpose.
One of the, I like leaving it in, and the reason I do is I think the downfall of most government is that we're more concerned with fairness than effectiveness. And I think that that stating that the purpose of this committee is to come up with a plan that's effective, removes the whole issue of fairness off the table. And I promise in this particular case, I believe fairness would be an issue unless we state right up front that we're looking for the most effective fire protection, firefighting service for the county.
The reason I offered that wording was, I remember, Mr. Cagle, when we started this, and I may be wrong, but I believe Mr. Robertson made the original motion. And that was, we were going to prioritize those departments. We were going to look at the ones first when we began this process, when the 1 cent was raised. And his motion included we would look at those departments which had the ability to improve their rating at the least possible expense to the fire district and could do it in as short a time as possible. And I felt like the wording that I initially gave to Mr. Jackson on the phone contradicted the original intent of what this board established, albeit I didn't vote for the original motion. I still think that that is the policy of the board, and I think we should maintain wording that substantiates that or gives credence to that rather than say something that distracts from it. So.
Oh, I guess my only thought was that we were maybe limiting the committee's ability to do as they saw fit and use their own judgment by using this limiting sentence in a way. And not that I disagree with the sentence, and not that I disagree with either with Mr. Robertson.
What it does is that again, the mission will be to provide the most cost-effective firefighting service in the county, as opposed to spreading the money as defined by what some people say is fair. And we're going to have to be real careful, because there's going to be a lot of folks that think that it's probably not fair.
And I want one other thing that I thought about that too was, I talked to Mr. Journey, and Union Grove had their rating. And I'll promote Nolan Shoemaker a little bit. Nolan went out and he found all the right buttons in that formula to push, and he has improved his rating dramatically at very low expense. Well, we need to be listening to people like Nolan Shoemaker.
That's right.
Let's figure out what Nolan did. And if somebody's got a good plan like Nolan that conforms to their district and emphasizes the assets that they have, either natural or man-made assets that they have, and they can use his expertise and his knowledge, and doggone it, they ought to move up the top of the list. And I just think that's prudent.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do I have a motion this time?
Mr. Chairman, I'd offer a motion that we agree to establish this committee to review the fire department operations, with the purpose of the committee to be as amended.
Okay. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye. So this basically establishes the committee, announces the vacancies, and it's anticipated that it will be back on your June 16th meeting for appointments to the committee.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Last item is approval of the May 19, 2009 minutes.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Those are administrative matters, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Announcement of vacancies occurring on boards and commissions. Carolinas Partnership, 1 announcement. Central Carolina Workforce Development Board, 2 announcements. Farmland Preservation Board, 2 announcements. Fire Tax District Board, 1 announcement. Jury Commission, 1 announcement. Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, 15 announcements. Stafford Planning Board, ETJ, 2 announcements. Trapman Planning and Zoning Board, ETJ, 1 announcement. Morsel Planning Board, ETJ, 3 announcements. Arthur County Planning Board, 4 announcements, and Region F Agent Advisory Board, 3 announcements. Okay, how many appointments to boards and commissions? State Planning Board, ETJ, 1 appointment. Do we have anybody?
Motion to table, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
unless someone else does.
Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, I believe we tabled most of these last time, and unless I'm wrong, once we table something, unless a member brings up a motion to pick it up from the table, then it remains tabled indefinitely. And I believe it would benefit the board and save the time of the board and the people who watch our proceedings if we, unless we had somebody to appoint, we just left things tabled. I had discussed that with Mr. Pope at a couple meetings prior, and we'd meant to bring it up and hadn't done it, and I felt like if I didn't do it now, I'd forget it eventually.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, as long as we know there's nobody out there that we, that one of the commissioners have that they won't appoint to that board.
Well, in my discussion with Mr. Pope, I felt like if we just listed these things each time and went down the list and then asked if any motions were in order, then that would probably solve both problems and save us quite a bit of time. Seems like we table a lot of things when we go down this list.
That'd be all right, me, as long as we get a reminder from time to time.
Yes, sir. I don't have a problem with reminding each and every time. But
Okay, then since we're going to change our particular procedure, we're going back, you want to make a motion that we do it that way?
I think it's in order that way anyway.
It is, if your motion last meeting was just to table, if your motion was, sometimes the motion will be to table to the next meeting. And
Yes, sir,
then, and
I
don't
believe when
recall
we
what
say
you-
table, we just mean table.
Okay.
So it's not specifically spelled out, then we just said table.
So, just according to our rules of procedure, if we say table, it doesn't get picked up unless somebody brings it up.
Okay?
And so I understand what you're saying is that unless somebody brings one of these items up tonight, it was tabled at the last meeting, and unless somebody brings them back up, it'll continue to be tabled. But you're also saying that you do want us to put into the agenda that those vacancies, each meeting, you want a list of the vacancies that still exist so that if you do have one you want to bring back up, you'll be reminded of that.
Yes, sir, and I would make a motion to that effect.
Okay.
That we announce these things each time and ask the, entertain a motion for any of them.
Okay? Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, moving forward. Unfinished business?
Well, having said that, I did have one for the Nursing Home Advisory Committee, if that's all right. One nominee.
Okay.
Can I make that motion?
I believe
You got a name here, Steve?
Yes, sir. Ms. Karen Clockfelter
Okay.
of Troutman. Madam Clerk, I have her address and phone number here for you.
Okay, you've heard that name. You've made that a motion, right, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, a nomination.
Okay, any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any other unfinished business? Okay, new business?
Mr. Chairman, over the last approximately 2 weeks, I've got my 5th phone call about somebody who lives in a neighborhood where a home has been repossessed, where the bank's not looking after the care of the home. And on 2 occasions, I actually drove by these places, and in one place, I'd say the grass was about 2 feet tall, and in another place, it was probably 3 or 4 feet tall. And I was wondering if we could instruct the staff to give some consideration to an ordinance where if the grass is over a certain height, that we could send the property owner a letter and tell them they need to mow the grass, and if they don't, we'll get it mowed or mowed it for them, send them a bill. If they don't pay it, we'll assess their property for that amount of money. In a couple of neighborhoods, one guy was going to mow the grass himself. He pretty much got run off by the property owner. They didn't want to be liable for him over there mowing the grass. So that's the type of thing you run into. And a couple of them are right in here close to town. The other three were out in the county. I know we get into this conflict where the folks who live several miles out of town and the nearest neighbor is a half a mile down the road, they don't want their neighbor getting on them. But if we can craft an ordinance where if it's in an approved subdivision or it's within a certain distance, just like we did for dilapidated housing, if they could look into the feasibility of crafting an ordinance to fit that, because I think we're going to see more and more of this.
Any additional comments? Regarding what Ms. Johnson said?
You restate the motion, please.
Just I move to have the staff look into the feasibility of crafting ordinance for related to uncapped loans.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson, now, we're to interpret that not just to look into the feasibility, but to develop a recommended ordinance? Right. Or am I putting words in your mouth?
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. Fine. Let's come back. Let's look at what other jurisdictions, other counties have done, and come up with a proposed ordinance and have us look at it.
Okay. I'm sure Mr. Pope will pass on that during that time to look into it and make sure we.
Who would before we go too far down the road, I want to know who's going to enforce it, because I mean I can see sheriff's deputies out there with yardsticks and.
Well, there's probably a couple of agencies or departments we could put that in. Obviously, I'm going to be looking to the planning and zoning department to work on looking at the feasibility and also maybe a recommended ordinance. But it's possible that we could use our solid waste enforcement officer to as the enforcement person for that, because most of the time they go out anyway. When we get a complaint about high grass, we tell them there's nothing we can do about the grass, but we'll send somebody out, and if there's trash around it or there's other violations, and many times we do have other violations, and then we will address it from that angle, but we've never been able to address it from the high grass angle by itself. So I don't know. That would be a recommendation. I think that we would want to come back with Mr. Robertson after we've had a chance to look and see what's going to be involved in it.
I just have one thing to say. Alan, if you're watching, mow the grass before we get home.
Well, I mean, it may come back and it may be so cumbersome that it's not feasible, but I'd like to at least look. Inevitably, what happens when they don't mow the grass, they're not keeping up the house. And one of them I looked at, the vents under the house, one of them was knocked out. The access door under the house, I think some of Mr. Niblock's folks had been out there to look at it. Solid Waste had been out there to look at it. They couldn't really find anything wrong other than the fact the grass was grown up and the grass concealed some activities. Some kids or whoever were going there over there vandalizing the house. So I mean, it was looking pretty bad.
Mr. Chairman, I'd rise initially, at least, in opposition to the motion, and certainly with an open mind. But a couple of things occur to me, and one is that we're really short money in staff, and may be difficult to enforce. Another thing is that I think most of the homes that fit this description are within municipal boundaries and subject to their own restrictions. The ones that aren't are probably in developments that have homeowners associations that decide what the grass ought to look like and various other things like that. There's a fairness issue that, I saw this come up in Salisbury one time, and you go out and you look at some guy that didn't mow his grass, and then you say, well, he's got to pay a big fine and this thing, and somebody's going to mow his grass for him. And then you go out and look and see what the federal government and the state government have been doing about the roads that they're supposed to keep up, and the grass along the highways is much higher than anything you see around these houses, and somehow the grass around some guy's house out in the country is a hazard, and the grass that grows along Interstate 40 or Highway 70 is not a hazard. I just think we get into splitting a lot of hairs, and I'm not certain that it can be enforced, and I'm not really sure that it should out in the county. Some people might say growing grass is farming. I don't know. And I haven't seen the house you're talking about, and maybe it slips through the cracks, from what I described. But those are the troubles I see with it, and I'm open to your comments, Mr. Johnson.
Well, the one in particular I looked at, there was no covenant among the owners of the property there. And I think you can craft an ordinance where a reasonable person is going to say guilty. Confession's good for the soul. I owned a lot in the city one time, and I kept telling my wife, I need to go over there and mow that thing. Well, something would always take a greater priority till I got a nice letter from the city one day. When I got that letter, I said, you know what? You better get off your duff, Johnson, and get over there and mow that grass. Well, I still didn't have time. I wound up paying somebody to do it. But most people, when they see that, I think will mow the grass because they know it needs mowing. Now, you're going to have some people who aren't, inevitably.
As long as we're telling personal stories, I knew a gentleman who owned a lot that was some distance from his home. It was on a golf course, and it had nothing but weeds and brambles and lions and tigers and bears living in there, and it was between two houses. The fellow went over one day and decided that was really not the cool thing to do. Had somebody take a bushwhacker and take all that down, and then threw out some grass and spent $400 or $500 trying to make the place nicer. And 2 or 3 months later, got a bill from the city because they had cut his grass for him. And it just seemed kind of strange that the place was much more dangerous before the grass than afterwards. And yet once you plant the grass, I guess you have to mow it. I don't know.
Mr. Kendall, having listened to what you said, Mr. Johnson-Bowe, I think it would be good to let the staff craft something. We'll have a chance to vote on it or turn it down or change it, whatever. So they do have something to enforce. Right now, we don't have anything. I think it'd be a good idea, for them to have a chance to sit down and bring something back to us. And you can turn it down at that time and give them a chance to come back and redo it. But right now, there's nothing there.
I'll stand down.
Okay. So do I have was that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Anything else?
Alan, please mow the grass.
Okay. We've heard the motion.
We're going to end up in the Supreme Court, man. Mow the grass.
I'm a libertarian, but I made that motion. You got to pass.
Yeah, there's some irony here, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, everybody in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Ayes have it. Any more new business, I should say. Do we have anyone else has any new business? If not, county manager's report.
I just have 2 items this evening. First is just a follow-up on the recent request you had from Mr. David Sherrill concerning paving a road called Rustic Way Lane. If you recall, Mr. Sherrill came before the county commissioners. We did speak to Mr. Sherrill after the meeting and determined that indeed the road that he had did fall in that gap zone between the time when the state would take over the road and the time that we were requiring that roads to be built to state standards. And so there was actually no provision to assist the residents on that street for bringing that up to state standard. They can bring it up to state standard using their funds and then petition the state to take it over in the future for maintenance. But it does have to be brought up to state standard before they do that. Was recommended that they consider talking to the city since they were close enough to the city to be brought in for voluntary annexation. My understanding is that the city also has a policy that it's got to be brought up to state standards before they'll take it over as well. So really, there does not appear to be anything that can be done except the residents could, go together and try to identify enough funds to bring it up to state standard. Once they do that, then the state would consider taking it over and maintaining it from that point forward. Any?
Can you relay this to Cheryl yet, Mr. Nelson?
It has been relayed to Mr. Sherman, that's correct.
Thank you.
The other thing I have is just a letter or a note, and I think some of you have already seen this, but I did want to read it because it also gives an update on Mr. Williams, the chairman of the board. This is to the Iredell County Commissioners, to the county manager, the department heads, and the employees. It says, my family and I would like to express a very heartfelt thanks to all of you for the many visits during my illness. Thanks for all your calls and your concerns. Also, thanks for the numerous uplifting cards with expressions of encouragement. Most of all, thank you for your prayers that were lifted up for me. Continue to pray for me as I'm recuperating at home. And just an update on that, got a note this afternoon that Mr. Williams was in attendance at a Rotary function today, and I don't think it's out of line for me to say this. He was presented the Paul Harris Fellow, which is a high award that's presented by Rotary, and so he was able to attend that meeting and also expressed to the staff that he does intend to be here at the second meeting of the meeting, June the 16th. And so that's kind of an update of where he is at this time. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to go into closed session on the property acquisition. GS 143-318.11, Section A5.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Can you imagine what life in North Carolina would be like if there were no county governments? Probably not. Because if you're like most people, you find it difficult to describe what your county government does for its citizens. The fact is, every time you go to a public school, or take a walk in a county park, or check out a book from the county library, or even eat in a restaurant, your county is working to provide programs and services that enhance our quality of life, protect us, and prepare us for the future. Counties create opportunity for coming generations by building and maintaining our public school facilities. Besides the money spent for buildings and grounds, counties put more than $2 billion each year into North Carolina's public school system. These funds are used to provide salary supplements to attract and retain top caliber teachers and hire additional classroom personnel to provide a better educational opportunity for our children. Counties enrich our lives by providing libraries that offer more than just books to read. Public libraries offer access to computers and the internet, educational programs for young children, as well as cultural activities, movie screenings, and community events. The great outdoors wouldn't be quite so great if it weren't for county efforts to protect farmland, preserve open space, and create and maintain parks and recreation facilities. County governments care for our environment in other ways too. On average, each North Carolinian generates 5.6 pounds of trash per day, creating 350 million tons of trash a week. Counties operate landfills to safely dispose of our waste so that it doesn't cause environmental problems, while recycling programs help reduce waste in landfills. Counties are also taking on an increasing role in providing clean water and wastewater treatment services to meet the needs of our growing population. County parks and recreation programs have something for absolutely everyone. From toddlers to seniors, sewing to swimming, nature classes to cooking classes, as well as athletic leagues and summer camps. A county government's responsibilities are not all fun and games. Counties also ensure our well-being so that we live in communities that are safe and secure. County sheriffs protect and preserve the peace, and counties also provide emergency medical response services and fund volunteer fire departments to watch over our health and safety. Many of the ways counties protect our citizens are harder to see, but they are no less vital and important. When you walk into a building or home, county inspectors have verified that the building meets safety codes. When you walk into a restaurant, you know what you're getting because county inspectors give sanitation grids to restaurants to reduce unsanitary practices and foodborne diseases. Health departments supply flu shots and other medical services for needy citizens, help control communicable diseases, and make available health education resources. These and other services are becoming even more necessary. By the year 2030, North Carolina is projected to grow from 9 million to 12 million people. The Census Bureau estimates we will be the 7th largest state in the nation. To accommodate this growth, counties will have to build at least 500 new schools in the next 20 years, or 1 new school every 2 weeks. Our growing population will tax our water supply and other natural resources, so county governments are already planning for tomorrow and taking the necessary steps to meet the challenges we will all face. All told, it's a pretty full day of work for your county government every day, but it doesn't stop there. County government, enhancing the quality of our lives and protecting our well-being today, while improving the future for all of North Carolina.
him. Are we doing anything? Do we have to do anything, or are we free to go home?
Yes, we're still on,
We have
he'll
to
bring
be-
us back.
Okay.
Yes.
We got to be more careful.
And I owe you this.
Sorry about that.
Hey, do you have to change before we go home?
Real quick.
Okay. Start unbuttoning now.
You ready to ride, ain't you,
Yeah. Are you kidding? I got to get out on the mow the grass.
Okay.
I got to stop and get some batteries on the way home.
Johnson will be over your house and check on you in the morning.
So in the flashlight so that he can mow the grass in the dark.
Okay, if there's no other business, there's no action need to be taken as a result of a closed session, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Keeler, any questions?
Nope.
We'll adjourn.
All right.